Thank you everyone for tuning in today. I appreciate you coming to today's Learn and Launch event. Today we are going to be talking about calls to action. I am Marie with Neat and Nimble, and today if you have any questions as we're going along, if you want to just go ahead and put them in the chat, I can address them after the presentation. So today we're going to cover what points in your customer's journey should you have a call to action. What are the differences between active and passive calls to action? And how can you improve those call to actions? Today's mission is that you receive actionable insights that you can make decisions with confidence to improve your marketing efforts and help build your brand. So a call to action, pretty simply put, it is the catalyst, and it is the thing that you're using to propel someone to take an action and to do something. Technically, it is the piece of content intended to induce a viewer, reader, or listener to perform a specific act, typically taking the form of instructive or directive. So you've used these, you know them, you've done things because of them. So everybody here is pretty familiar with what a call to action is. So when are you supposed to use one? There's really no right or wrong answer. You should be using them before, during, and after the sale. Pretty much any time that you want someone to do something. So in your customer's journey, they have a problem, and they are going to seek out information, and those are the times that they should be experiencing your marketing. Okay, this is going to be through social media, this might be through digital advertising, you might have print ads, it could be articles or blog posts on your website. Then they're going to discover you, and you want them to do something about that. We're asking them to then inquire. Along the road, you're going to probably have several different communications with them. You might even get a big fat no. They might not want to buy, and that's okay. Or they might get your product or service and have a bad experience. That's when you have the opportunity to flip that no into a yes and give them a positive experience with your customer service. You'll also take them along their path, along their journey, through all of the things and all the challenges that you're there to help them with. And at the end, they arrive at the solution. And being able to repeat this over and over again is how you build your brand and create consistency for your clients. So it's important to map out the moments in your customer's journey when you need them to get to the next point, when you need them to get to the next step, to get to the next milestone or landmark in their journey. And when you are mapping your customer's journey, it's also known as a sales funnel. And those steps include awareness of your brand, discovering that they're interested in something, making a decision to buy it, taking action, the experience they have, and then hopefully advocacy and building your brand. And it might look up and down, it might have a lot of different points on it. And those are all the different points that you're going to be using those call to action. So what's the difference between like an active call to action and a passive call to action? So an active call to action is very direct. It uses a strong verb showing the subject doing the action. So you experienced this whenever you were signing up for today, and it was register to receive the recording. In order to receive the recording, you have to register. A passive call to action is indirect. It would imply a result, and the subject is being acted upon by the verb. So that example would be registrants will receive a copy of the recording. They're not that different. When someone reads it, they will be able to tell that if you register, then you will get a copy of the recording. However, they sound a little bit different. One is more active than passive. And so part of marketing is deciding which one you think you should use in the moment. And the answer is, it depends. A lot of times you need to decide like who you're talking to, how much value have you built into the action that they're taking versus the risk that you're asking them to take. So for today's recording, which is my example today, I asked for people's contact information. And quite frankly, I made it as low of a barrier to entry as I could. I tried to keep the form quick, sweet, and simple. I wanted to collect email addresses so that I could send future communication. I wanted to collect phone numbers so that I can follow up with folks and make sure that they didn't have any questions or see if they needed help with anything. I also wanted to know people's business. And that was kind of a qualifier for today, to make sure that I was also pushing away people who maybe are not current business owners, and are not in my target market. And so, that being said, I did not ask for anyone's web address, their URL. I did not ask for their social media handles. I did not ask for their little like mailing address. Those are things that I can always collect later if we decide to start a relationship together. So, all in all, it was a pretty not so risky choice to sign up and register for today. And that was designed, that was purposeful. Also, you want to consider like what your brand's communication style is. I tend to be a pretty direct person. I'm told I don't feel like I'm a direct person, but I also don't beat around the bush. Like I am a person that tends to get to the point because everybody's time is valuable. And so if we're, wasting time going back and forth, trying to figure out what each other are trying to say, that is not valuable use of anyone's time. And so I tend to be someone who is more direct, and tries to kind of convey what you're going to be getting out of something before I ever even try to ask for something. And then how much time do you have? So obviously, whenever you receive the invitation and you found out about today's event, you found out about it through a couple of different channels. There's a chance that you heard about it from one of my partners, and someone in my network who knows me and trusts me and can vouch for me. There's a chance that you saw it on my own social media, for the Neat and Nimble accounts. You could have maybe signed up for a previous email subscription and gotten an invitation directly to your inbox. All those different references had different time periods on them. If you saw a story on my Instagram, I know that I had 15 seconds to get my point across, before you were, swiping on to the next thing. 15 seconds is even probably too long. It was probably more like a second. And so it was really imperative that I build value and ask you to do something very quickly. If you are having, if your customers in a step in their journey where they're like walking through a retail space or sitting down at a table, you might have a little bit more time to kind of build that value before you ask them to do something. And it's important to kind of notice the differences in that. You can keep your message and your calls to action consistent, even if you are adjusting them and editing them to be correct for the placement that they're in. And sometimes you literally have like less space to work with, if you have a digital ad that is, a small skinny banner at the top of a web page, you're literally going to have less space to work with than a full email, that, someone can scroll and read on, or a web page where someone can scroll and read on. And so those are all things to consider when you're writing your calls to action. So the example here is the landing page for this event. It had, I want to say it's like 9 sections. We're going to go through them today. So the very first thing that you saw when you got to the page was information that built value. So we've got the very quick synopsis of exactly the what and the when, before moving on to pushing away people who are not interested in this event, as well as asking for an emotional response and triggering and building action through those self-identifiers. Right after that, if you're ready, I'm ready for you to take action. So I gave the 2 passive call to actions of I plan to attend or just want the recording. That way people could take the information and make a decision right then and there. If they're not quite convinced yet, we build more value with deeper understanding and a better explanation that's more in depth about today's event. Again, I then appeal to an emotional response and ask people if they would find value in the other item, the freebie that they're going to be receiving after registering today. Then call to action. We have urgency and an active call to action. Spots are limited, register here. Along with a passive call to action that's building value again, reminding people that anybody who registers will also receive the recording. Then we have the actual form. This is the active opportunity period. This is when we lowered the barrier to entry as much as we could to still accomplish both the viewer's goals and my goals. Then at the very end, we have that actual conversion point. That is the time when people will take the action and actually do the thing. So today it was to submit their registration. Right now the button says send. In the future, I would probably even revise this and improve it again and say register instead. So how can you improve your calls to action? Which is why you're here, right? The first step you're going to want to take is to analyze. This is how we approach all of our projects at Neat and Nimble. You take a look at where you're at, review your key performance indicator metrics, and decide what is good and what is bad. When you're looking at calls to action and those conversion points through your customer's journey and through your sales process, this would be evaluating lots of different points, but some of those might include like engagements, reactions, shares, and comments on social media. It could include opens, clicks, replies, and shares from a email piece. It can include follows and subscriptions as you're building your audience. It might include reorders, cart abandonment rates, and completed orders if you're e-commerce. It could also include phone calls. How many phone calls are you getting to your place of business? How many times is someone redeeming or checking out your QR code? It could also mean coupon code redemptions. How often someone is choosing to use your coupon code that you have out in the world. It could also be online reviews, user-generated content, and tags and mentions. Recommendations and word of mouth are the epitome, that is the gold mine of marketing. And those are really hard to replicate, but that's when you know that you're really making it. And so having an idea of and being able to track any and all of these different actions is where the rubber really meets the road, and how you're going to figure out where you are now so that you can figure out where you need to go, what you need to change in order to get where you're going. So the first step is to analyze and benchmark. What are the current industry standards for how you're doing? How do you compare to the industry standards? What is current? And kind of where do you stand? How are you doing? And that could be a comparison just on yourself, how you're doing year over year. During years like 2020, when everything's up in the air, people really kind of lose sight of things and can sometimes don't know how to compare themselves to themselves from years past. And so sometimes you have to kind of give yourself grace and throw those numbers out and just compare yourselves to where you are right now compared to the others in your industry. So, and that's okay. But it's also good to keep in mind how big of a difference you're seeing in those numbers compared to sales and other metrics from years past. The second step is going to be to prioritize. So where can you make the biggest impact? This is when it's important to focus and figure out what conversion rates you need to see change and improve in order to achieve your most important goal. I want to preface this by saying that sales is not always the number that you need to focus on. There's many other actions that happen before the conversion point of making a sale that you can concentrate on and focus energy towards, and then the result will be the sale. And so when you find your focus and when you know what you're trying to achieve, it's a lot easier to see the path to success. The third step is going to be to strategize, figuring out long-term solutions, as well as evaluating and figuring out what those short-term gains are going to be. So what changes can you implement to increase the likelihood that you're going to get that desired action, that you're going to get the desired outcome? And so that's when checking in and seeing that entire customer journey that you evaluate in the first step, being able to see where those challenges are and where things are, not converting the way you'd like them to, where your calls to action are maybe not building enough value before you're asking someone to take action. That is where you can focus energy in order to get people through the whole journey. And so when you have a strategy and you make a change, it's time to test it. And so marketing is a practice. It's not, yes, there is some science behind it, but it's important to remember that it's constantly evolving. So when you make a change, test it, revise it, rinse and repeat. And so if you are making a change, test it for a short amount of time, see how it goes, change it, test it again, and keep going. Business and marketing, we're in it for the long haul, right? And so it's important to kind of make sure that you are constantly keeping track of the different points in your customer's journey and figuring out where you need to make improvements in order to get your desired outcome and reach those business goals long term. Since everybody's here, I would like to invite you to participate in my launch plan, right? Learn and launch plan, get it? So this is a special offer just for people who registered for today's event. And what it is it is a commitment to outlining your customer's journey. I think that this should take just a couple of hours. It's going to be establishing where you are with your current marketing efforts, how much you're spending, as well as what your sales process looks like, any kind of loyalty programs that you have, reviews, advocacy programs. Then we gather all of those materials. We talk about what is working and what you think needs to work better. I go back and I evaluate all the information. I gather more data points, and you basically kind of open up your back end to your marketing strategy, and let me in to kind of look at where you are, and then figure out where we need to go. And so then we would have a follow-up meeting, and it'd be a one-on-one discussion with a custom plan for you, with a goal, possibly to remember, we want to make sure we're focused, and then an action plan on how to achieve it, as well as like several check-ins after that plan is expressed to you, to kind of see how things are going, what changes you've made, how things are improving, and if we need to tweak the plan and edit and update and keep going. So that plan, that offer, normally would be a $700 value. And if you are committed before the end of the year, this will be offered for just $599. And so if you are interested in committing to improving your calls to action and improving your customer's journey and building your brand, I would be really excited to work with you. The special offer is only available until the end of 2020. And so please reach out and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again for joining me for today's Learn and Launch. I'm Marie Newell. See you next time.